Day one of athletic testing at the NFL Combine is done with defensive linemen, linebackers, and edge rushers going through the drills. Let's break down the biggest winners from Thursday night's testing in today's episode of Best Available. Thank you so much for watching today's episode. Make sure that you are subscribed on YouTube and follow us on socials at Best Available YT. First day of testing is in the books, and I'm excited to break down these players. So let's just go ahead and dive right into the winners. You guys, I think Sonny Styles might be a top 5 pick. On Wednesday, we got a chance to hear from Styles at his podium during media availability, and he really stood out with his just intensity as far as his passion and football IQ. Said he's been playing the game since 4 years old. I'm dying to know what 4-year-old organized football looks like, but this guy's been a ball player his whole life, and the tape shows you that this guy was probably going to be a top 10, top 15 pick. But even then, I wasn't even remotely prepared for what we were going to see on Thursday night with the athletic testing. Styles went viral almost immediately with a 43.5-inch vertical that was absolutely jaw-dropping. No other linebacker in this year's class had a vertical jump higher than 40 inches. It's a record among off-ball linebackers since 2013 by a full inch. Styles wasn't done, though. His broad jump of 11'2" was the 4th best among linebackers since 1999. 99th percentile jumps in both of these make Styles the biggest winner of the Combine by a mile. But he still wasn't done. He still ran a sub-4.5 40-yard dash. After running a 4.49 in his first attempt, Styles improved on that in the second run with a 4.47 in his second run. Just absolutely insane numbers across the board for a 6'5", 244-pound linebacker. This is a ridiculous prospect. You combine the tape with the size and the athletic testing, I felt pretty comfortable with him as a top 10 pick. I legitimately think this guy's going to go top 5 at this point. There's so many boxes that he checked this week. The biggest winner from tonight's events, and just great job by him. I am still floored. This is rare stuff that we're talking about. Another linebacker that really impressed me was Jake Golday out of Cincinnati, a guy that the tape I'm confused by a little bit. He's obviously tremendous size and athletic ability, but as the most imposing presence on the Cincinnati defense, they had him playing a lot of slot and, split out wide. He was just a real chess piece for Cincinnati. And I might not have personally agreed with it with his skill set, but that athleticism and size are really appealing. And he got to show both of those off at the Combine this week. Measuring in at 6'4.5" and 239 pounds, Golday is definitely on the bigger end of off-ball linebackers. That didn't stop him being from near the top of the group in both vertical and broad jump, where he finished top 5 in both drills with a 39-inch vertical and 10'5" broad jump. Just tremendous testing for a guy of that size. And then he comes in and runs a 4.6 flat in the 40. Really solid time at that size. These are the kind of questions people were going to have. I'm still a little bit questioning his physicality just from the tape, but I think that's being too nitpicky. I think that was more of an indictment of how he was being utilized, being so far away from the box and being able to fill the run in certain situations. I am really curious to see what he looks like at the NFL level. But for any questions about his size and athletic profile, all of those got answered this week. Really nice day from him. I'm sure him and his agent are going to be thrilled with how this goes, because I imagine he climbed up pretty steadily as far as his draft stock goes. Let's move on to the defensive tackles who started off the day, and I don't think anyone had more buzz regarding their measurements than Caleb Banks out of Florida. One of the most imposing humans I think you'll see during this weekend, coming in at 6'6" and 327 pounds, and that is like a cut 327 pounds for a guy of his size. But the big thing is his 35-inch arms. That is absurd length at the position. One of the comps he started getting drawn to during the athletic testing and with those measurements was DeForest Buckner, but even then he comes in like 30 pounds bigger than Buckner was coming out of college. But there are just very few comps for a defensive tackle with this frame. And then he posts these just great athletic testing numbers. You see a guy that size, especially at a position like defensive tackle, and you can be a little bit more forgiving with his numbers. But Banks was like, nah, I'm good. 32-inch vertical was 6th among defensive tackles. 9'6" broad jump was 2nd. And as if that wasn't impressive enough with that frame, he runs a 5.04 40-yard dash. When you have a weight-adjusted speed score, that is really strong and going to help him stand out. While he didn't play much this past season, trying to play through an injury before being shut down, you can see some real flashes of pure dominance on his tape in previous seasons. And then shows up at the Senior Bowl and has a really, really strong outing. Really impressed by this guy. Really excited to see where he lands. I hope he stays healthy at the NFL level, because he can really be one of these presences on the defensive line where you can move him around a little bit and he can just wreak havoc on offensive linemen. A little bit more of an unheralded name and a little bit more of an undersized guy at defensive tackle, but I wanted to make sure I gave a shout out to Grayson Holton out of Oklahoma. A tick small at 6'2" and 5/8 inches and 293 pounds, but just some really, really impressive day from him. That 9.6 broad jump tied with Caleb Banks, and then he goes ahead and runs a 4.82 in the 40-yard dash, one of the fastest numbers of the day, along with a 4.79 short shuttle. Just some really strong numbers overall. Really happy for him. That's a good day, along with some really good jumps. 36.5-inch vertical, 9'6" broad jump like we talked about. That 36.5-inch vertical is in the 99.5 percentile for defensive linemen. So just when you're coming in undersized, you really need to have a strong day athletic testing wise. And boy, did he do that. Great for him. You turn up the tape, and admittedly, I haven't watched a ton of him, but when watching other Oklahoma prospects, the thing that always stood out to me is that he just has a relentless motor. He is flying in pursuit. He is giving great effort at the point of attack. I think that plus his testing is going to have scouts, not only impressed, but probably going back to his film to be like, all right, if he's testing this well, let's comb through it again, see what we're looking at. And that might have really helped him get some more eyeballs on him across the league. So I always love shouting out some guys that maybe don't have a ton of attention. Grayson Holton, great day from him. Can't wait to see how that helps him out by the time April comes around. On a day where there's a lot of buzz about this edge class and the lack of length in guys like Reuben Bain and Cassius Howell, Bailey reminded everyone why he's likely going to be one of the top edges in this group. And with a day like today, might be really putting himself in that conversation for edge one. Now, I'm not saying in my personal rankings that he's edge one, but I think he's up there with the way that he tested today. Given his explosiveness on tape, it's no surprise that Bailey had a strong outing in the jumps. Solid 35-inch vertical. Maybe you could argue he'd won a little bit more, but not particularly surprising. But the 10'9" broad jump was just 2 inches off the best broad jump of the edge group. Really impressive, combined with that broad with that length. That's really good to see. Bailey was also the fastest edge rusher in this group with a 4.5 flat 40-yard dash. It was pretty substantially the fastest. We'll talk about another guy that was right there, but that speed is something really good to see. You can see it on tape when he can get a clean release around the edge and then he starts getting that second gear up. He can fly into the quarterback, so shouldn't be a huge surprise. But the fact that testing checked out, he comes in at over 250 pounds and still worked out is really good to see. You see him going through all of the drills at that bigger weight. I think he added some weight from when he was playing. I'm checking, came in around 250. So the fact that he didn't lean out and still tested everything, has those 33 3/4 inch arms. Again, we talked about it with Bain and everyone. So much concern about limited length in this edge group. 33 3/4 inch arms was near the top of this edge class. So he's checking the athletic testing, the physical tools, all of that. This guy has a real potential to go top 10. And I just want to take a moment when we're talking about this edge group to talk about that lack of length. I did talk to somebody today that was talking about how there's been a real issue with the way that arm length's been measured at the combine the last couple of years, and that's why you're seeing some weird numbers and why you're seeing such drastic differences in numbers of guys that played in the Shrine and Senior Bowl, and then they suddenly have shorter arms at the combine. So there's a little bit of a controversy like under or behind the scenes with arm length at the combine, so that also might tell you to not panic too much on a guy like Reuben Bain or Cassius Howell. But that being said, Bailey's length is legit, and for teams that are looking for a particular play style, they might end up preferring David Bailey over a Reuben Bain or an Arvell Reese, who's more of a projection at edge, even though he's flashed at times there. So I am very curious to see where he goes, but I don't think Bailey could have had a better day today as far as the athletic testing. He needed to check those boxes to just really solidify being a potential top 10 pick. And then wrapping up the edge group and the day as a whole with Malachi Lawrence out of Central Florida. This is a guy I had not heard anything about until I arrived in Dallas at the Shrine Bowl, and certainly I started hearing a lot of buzz, like, hey, a productive pass rusher out of Central Florida. He's really toolsy, shows up at practice. I was immediately impressed. He really flashed in some one-on-ones and things like that. And then I went back to the hotel, turned on the tape, and went, wow, okay, this guy has a legit nasty pass rush bag, can win in a variety of ways with his twitch, his bend, his agility to cut inside, and he has hand usage and a couple of moves at his disposal, like a proven pass rusher that could be ready right away. And I had been hearing some buzz that he was going to test well. I was not prepared for how he was about to test, because this is another one of those big, big winners in Indianapolis this week. Some legit elite scores for Lawrence: a 40-inch vertical, a 10-foot 10 broad jump. He was right up there with Bailey in the 40-yard dash at 4.52, and a 1.59 10-yard split. And when you're talking about 10-yard splits, that's another indication of explosiveness. Both those numbers in the 40 and the 10 split were second among this defensive end group. Really wanted to see that. According to Kentley Platt, I have to make sure I give him a shout out in one of these videos. Great guy. The relative athletic score is a great tool and resource. Had a 9.90 relative athletic score pre-agility testing, if we even get that at any point in his pre-draft process. It says a lot about how dangerous this guy is as a pass rusher. He has so many different ways to beat off defensive linemen. I think that's something scouts are going to love. And with the explosive scores that he posted, I think it's something to help him skyrocket and really solidify that day 2 draft status in this year's class. That's going to do it for day 1. Had a ton of fun watching these guys. They're always really fun to see. I mean, Sonny Styles, again, I can't get enough of it. Shout out to you, man. One of the biggest winners I've seen at the Combine in a while. Still floored by it. So shout out to him. Cannot wait to see how day 2 and day 3 and the rest of the weekend goes. So let me know who you were really impressed by this weekend. Keep me posted. Leave a comment as far as who you want to see talked about in future videos, who impressed you, who you're excited to see for the rest of the week. We'll be back tomorrow night after the results are from day 2. I believe that's defensive backs. I talked to all these guys today. I should know this. I believe it's DBs and tight ends. But we'll see all those guys tomorrow. Thank you so much for watching Best Available, and we'll see you later.